both of those things are easier than, you know, planning on working out for 90 days or getting off sugar. You know what I mean? And they just make you feel really good. So, you know, my answer is don't make it about you.
There's nothing wrong with having goals as long as you have the roadmap to where you want to go, right? And you have to create that for yourself based on...
Too many people, youngsters especially, I mean, what happens a lot of times is you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole just so that you can fit in. And the fact of the matter is you don't fit in.
Or what do I want to happen in my business? What do I want to happen personally? Moving from there and making plans with small steps.
I have a three-part answer here. My first one is...
We're here, everybody.
Well, here we are, Melissa, for our third installment on how to help people not make all the mistakes that we always make every year because we don't want to keep making those mistakes. So, you know, a third time is a charm. And what's kind of fun about today, everybody, is that there are some questions that have been asked to us. And we're going to go ladies first. So I'm going to read the question. Melissa's going to give her answer. And then I'm going to give my answer. And if her answer is so locked in and perfect, exactly like mine, I'm just going to say the word ditto.
Ditto.
But I might add a thing or two. I know, because this is your world. You know, I'm really good on pull-ups and push-ups and squats and lunges and things of this nature. But, you know, this is your wheelhouse, as they say. So I'm going to read the very first one. So great to see you. I love your hat. I'm a little bit jealous. It's very cool. Mine says Hero Motors. I got it in Malibu.
Nice.
Malibu, out here in California. You know.
You got it in the boo.
I'm ripping the gnar up here in the Cal. You know what I mean? Cali. All right, here we go. Drum roll. I do the same bit every time. I do the drums. I do the horn. It's just who I am. All right. The new year is upon us. What are the most common mistakes that you, Melissa, see that people make when it comes to their health here when the new year is upon us?
I would say setting big, lofty goals or resolutions for themselves that they have no idea how to accomplish. So I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. I'm going to start working out every day this year. I'm going to write all these kind of big, lofty kind of goals, resolutions, expectations, and then, you know, only 7% of people keep their resolutions. 7%. Yes, it's probably even less
out
now.
of this many.
Out of a billion, 7%. I mean, it might even be less than that. That's in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, that's a figure that I do see on the interweb. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, I am not a fan of resolutions. And we can talk about, I think one of the questions has to do with what I do, but I think that...
Did you just say do-do?
You do.
Yeah.
What I do.
You do.
But I think people who kind of go into the new year all gung-ho, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and they have all these things that they want to change about themselves, and they just set themselves up for failure.
Yeah, that's, and the only thing I would add to that, because that's kind of spot on, is living in such a way that you're incredibly unhappy with for very long periods of time, many months prior to the holidays, and then assuming come on a particular date,
right,
just because there's a new number that is attached to a new date, that's when you're going to get your act together. You are certainly setting yourself up for failure there, regardless of whether your goals are lofty or otherwise. You're right. Yeah. Is it 5? Is it 7%? I don't know what it is. My answer is why wait? Why wait? You know, I made some dietary changes after a really cool conversation I had with Michelle Pettis.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Oh my gosh, I will. I'll get that. I'll do that at the end. But
okay.
And I started right away. I kept thinking about what she was saying. You know, if this food isn't loaded with nutrients and minerals and vitamins and doesn't serve me and feed me and heal me and give me what I need to be a productive human being, then why put it in my mouth? I was just like, God dang it, I guess I'm already giving you the answer. I'm already pretty disciplined already, but I just really, and I ended up going to Jackson Hole and losing 7 pounds by mistake. But it was also because I was skiing and doing everything else. So my short answer is, getting back to the original question, is, you know, forget about the first, whatever. Start when you want to start. Start now before the holidays. Why don't you be an anomaly compared to everybody else? Like, just that way you get through the holidays with possibly losing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds. I don't know, as opposed to just gaining that amount of weight and then having to start with more weight and being out of shape more. You know what I mean? And then, like, let's say you can't do that, and you go, you know what, I'm going to start on February 1st. That's what I'm going to start. That feels right for me, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to start small and work my way up and just make one small change at a time. I think that's also okay. But a lot of people get into a panic about January 1, you know what I mean? Because they're not really prepared. They don't have the right program in line. They haven't asked the right questions yet. They don't know, there's a lot of unanswered questions prior to that date. And then that day shows up, and they're like, oh my God, they're more miserable than they were before they were even thinking about it. So do it when you're ready. Maybe do it before it's the 1st, and you might have a better result. And you might actually be part of that 7%. Yeah. You might make it 8%.
Yeah, and when it doesn't feel like it's pressure, right? The second you feel the pressure, that's when it's like, you start to freak out, and then you just kind of, people lose steam when they start to feel the pressure versus this is how I live each and every day. This is what I'm doing each and every day, right? I'm moving my body, I'm eating well, I'm, planning my meals, I'm taking care of myself, like whatever those things are, but without all that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need the pressure. There's enough pressure during the holidays.
That's right.
Why pile on? Seems silly.
Right.
Now, question number 2 is, I think we've kind of already answered, but so maybe when I read this question, there'll be some extra nuance. I might have one thing to add to it here, but talk about your take on resolutions in general for people out there who want to make change. Yay or nay?
Yeah, nay, because again, all the pressure, right? And why this date of January 1? By the way, who made that up? Let's find out who made up New Year's resolutions. Was it the fitness industry? Was it the diet industry? Who knows?
Somebody out to make a buck, I bet. I'm just
exactly. Yeah. I'm guessing it had to do with money, making, like you said, making a buck. So I would say nay on the resolutions, right? Well, I think one of the questions is about what I do moving into the new year, but I look at the new year as a time for me to set an intention for myself of like how I want to show up for myself in the new year. Like, how do I want to show up for me in the new year? And how is that going to, build on so that other people get benefit from that?
Yeah. I like what you used, the magic word there, which was intentions over resolutions. Yeah. And the other thing too, the only thing I would add here is if you're going to have a resolution, or you're going to have an intention, or you're going to have a behavioral change, what if this year, like, I want to do something, it's a new year. Then what if you didn't make it about you and you made it about somebody else? Well, and I've talked about this in my Tony Talks. The power of giving, and the power of patience, and the power of listening, and the power of doing something really wonderful for somebody else. And the list is your family, and then there's your friends, and then there's strangers, and then there's people you don't like at all. Like, those are 4 separate categories, and the real rock stars this time of year will do all 4. Yeah. Like, I was in Jackson Hole. This is this little thing. Like, I started with my family. I reached out to a friend of mine about a guy who I was having some issues with, and I invited him to an event that I'm participating in, and he's coming. And I was like a little surprised, but he was surprised that I reached out. So, not that he's an enemy or a foe. We were just a little bit in conflict for years, almost a year and a half had passed, and I just said, stupid. So at one end of the spectrum, I did that. And when I was in Jackson Hole, I saw this I love you card for Shauna. And it wasn't a birthday card. It wasn't an anniversary card. It wasn't a Christmas card. It was just an I love you card. And I walked into the pharmacy, and I was looking for that, and I grabbed it, and I gave it to her today. And that's, and that's harder. That's easier. Both of those things are easier than, planning on working out for 90 days in a row, or getting off sugar. You know what I mean? And they just make you feel really good. They make you just feel great. Yeah. So, my answer is resolution, evolution, intention, whatever it is. Don't make it about you right now. Yeah. Make it about somebody else, because that's what this holiday's about, right? Yeah.
Being of service. That's I think that's something you've talked about in your Tony Talks as well. Like, that's one of the, the most motivational ways to help you feel like you have purpose in the world, and that you're doing good in the world. And that, for me, being of service is so important, because it keeps me kind of grounded in reality, right? Number one, because I'm helping others that may have less than me or may, just have needs. And, and then it also gives me motivation to just want to be better in my life in general.
Yeah, because a lot of times what happens, I think, and you and I have discussed this, we've known each other a long time, is you get really kind of stuck in the muck and the mire of your own personal trauma and drama and situations and whatever it is. And so your head starts spinning around. But you plan on working on those things and doing what you can for those things, but you want to give enough bandwidth for stuff outside of yourself. And that just changes the collective energy. And the amazing thing is, like in my case, when I did this for this guy, Ben, years and years ago, it changed my life forever. Like I did something nice for a guy, I offered him workout, and he introduced me to the now CEO of Beachbody, and like, look where I am. You know what I mean? And so those, and that's not from a friend. It's not from a family member. It's not for a stranger. I knew who he was. I just didn't like the guy, and I didn't think he liked me. And is that those kind of moments, and it just changes. I mean, think about how the worldwide collective energy changed because I read a thing in a book and I did a nice thing for a guy.
Right.
Like we're talking millions and millions of people who've done my programs who are different people than they were if I hadn't. And if I hadn't done that, I might still be a trainer living in a 2-bedroom apartment, driving my car all over town, training in a couple of celebrities or something, I don't know.
Ripple effect.
Ripple effect on that is, same thing with being married to Shauna. A friend of mine said, hey, I need a space for 100 people for a fundraiser. Can we do it at your house? It's my brand new house, and I'm going to have people trampling through my brand new house. and I went, and I'm thinking, well, it's to help orphans in Africa and China and all around the world. Yeah, I better do that. You know what I mean? And so the gal that, a stranger that was there introduced me to Shauna about a year and a half later, and now, yay.
Yes, Tamara, right?
What's that? Tamara K.
Right?
Tamara K. We love her. All right, next question. We see a lot of New Year, New You going on out there. And this is basically all the same category, but this is a little nuanced. The New Year, New You going out there. What are your thoughts on that present theme that we see running around?
Yeah, again, I feel like it's, number one, it's giving people the message that there's something wrong with them as they are right now. And there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be a new you, right? It's just because it's a new year. You're not going to create a new you. It's just about doing what serves you as a human. And also all these other things we're talking about, being of service, giving back, all of those things that, a new you, what does that even mean? You're going to go, have a new body, have a new mindset.
Well, you know what I mean? Like you get your nails done, and you get your lashes, you get your hair cut, and you get a facial, and you know what I mean? Like I guess there's nothing wrong with those types of things if those make you feel good. I would never naysay that. But again, it has a lot to do with, me, I.
Right. It becomes very
mine.
Self-centered.
Yeah. It's funny. It's the holidays. Who do you give gifts to? Other people. Like, oh, Merry Christmas. What did I give me? It's like, let me open up this gift that I bought myself.
Yeah.
And you know what? The New Year, New thing is, it's kind of like, Grandparents' Day. It's just another way to sell some cards and you know what I mean? Like there's always some kind of, corporation looking at ways to make some money. My answer to that is what makes you, and by the way, I think there's two ends of that. What makes you feel good? What makes you like, if you feel like you want to get all gussied up and buy some new clothes and get a facial or get a haircut or dye your beard like me, and that makes you feel good. Well, just keep in mind that the new year is going to come and go, and there's going to be February and March and April and May and June, July. So you can't keep buying yourself stuff over and over and over again to fill a void because you're unhappy about this, that, and the other. So, the things that you and I talk about, the dietary changes and the physical movement changes, as you and I know, and a lot of people who are fans of me and this is long term. This is all the time. This is there's a consistency and a purpose factor here and a plan factor here. Having a plan, having a plan, and the purpose and the plan and the accountability and these things have to be part of your DNA now. You know, I did a little thing last night about genetics versus epigenetics, and that, you know, you are who you are, and that's fine. And you know, your height and the way your hands and your feet and the color of your skin. I mean, you can move your teeth around and whiten them. That's, you know, maybe you have some bad genetics there, but you can do that, right? You can also bleach your hair if you want. You can put in colored contacts if you want. If you don't like your nose, you can get surgery. I suppose you can go all through that kind of stuff. And maybe some of that makes you happy some of the time, part of the time. But really, ultimately, what you and I do, the physical and the diet, affects what goes on the inside. And what goes on the inside affects your mental and emotional state. That's number one. Clean, healthy, whole food, and regular exercise where there's a lot of inhalation of oxygen and exhalation of carbon dioxide. That's what that brings out the better version of you, as opposed to a new dress, and then the dress isn't new after a month, and then what do? Then you go buy another new dress. And I like new things, but when I buy something new, I give it away I give whatever's old to somebody else. You know, and you probably have some of my clothes at your house. So the new year, new you. Hey, if it floats your boat, great. But remember, there's February, March, April, May, 2025, 26, 27. So, you know, this is what we talk about. You and I talk about it, really about quality of life long term.
And also making sure you're not only working with your physical and what you're putting in your body, but also your mindset, because our mental health is so important. And so many people are struggling with mental health right now. And not to go dark, but I just learned about 2 suicides of the neighbor of my mom and the neighbor of one of my friends. Like, you know, and yeah, so it's just like people are really struggling right now, you know, and that's where service comes in. And that's where also, you know, working with making sure we're getting support with our mental health, whatever that means, and working with our belief systems and our mindset and all that stuff, because that's just as important as everything else.
Yeah, as more so, really. Here's a question. I don't know if this one was directed to you originally or me, but we'll both try to answer it. You've mentioned expectations in other talks we've had. Can you speak to this when it comes to people setting goals in the new year? Now, let's assume that the new year has nothing to do with goal setting. Let's just assume that we've already covered waiting till January 1 to set a bunch of goals. But just goal setting in general and expectations of those goals in general, what would be your answer to that, Melissa?
I mean, I think that a lot of people set really high, unrealistic expectations for themselves. And that, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having goals as long as you have the roadmap to where you want to go, right? And you have to create that for yourself based on who you are, how you're going to approach things. And so, like, say you have a goal, you know, to run a marathon, right? You're going to start training. You're going to start little by little, you know, taking little increments and training and doing things like that. Now, that's more of like a tangible thing. But, you know, with goals, I think that so many people are like, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. And it's like, okay, well, how are you going to do that? Is that really realistic? Like, what's your plan? You know, how are you going to handle setbacks? If you're feeling deprived, then all of a sudden you want to eat everything. And then you start yo-yoing. So it's like, there's a lot of components that go into goal setting. And I'm a big believer in, you know, just, this is where we've talked about this, is like starting small, right? Starting small. And there was an article years ago, I think I sent it to you, about this racing team, this bicycle racing team. And the coach had them like go 1% harder each day. And that 1%, right, over 365 days, then they started winning all these races because they just went 1% harder. Then they went 3% harder. So it's just like, those little
so they didn't burn out and overtrain, right? And then, because if they had, like a lot of people just trying to build Rome in a day, and that ends up happening, they burn out and overtrain, and then when it comes to competition, they're coming in last. Because their strategy, even though they were gung ho and all in and fired up, but they just had, you know, they had the wrong plan. You know, so you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and also, you know, with food, not that this is really a goal, but when I look at food and when people start to think about food and weight loss and all that stuff, I tell people to focus on not what they're taking away, but what they're adding into their diets, right? Like, what if you looked at, I'm going to add like a leafy green salad every day versus I'm going to stop eating X, Y, and Z, right? Look at what you can add in versus what you can take away, because then that, I feel like that is a more abundant mindset versus going into deprivation, which can then trigger all kinds of stuff with food, you know?
Yeah. You know, my answer would be goal setting is great. It's always nice to put pen to paper and kind of write down, you know, some of the things that you'd like. I personally, when it comes to goals, I don't put dates.
Yeah.
I don't put dates, you know what I mean? And if I do put a date, it is so far off in the future that I'm almost guaranteed to succeed, right? And so, and then expectations, unrealistic expectations, obviously are going to, you know, create a lot of angst and depression and sadness because you hadn't achieved them. So, but then again, a lot of people who have expectations don't know that they're unrealistic, right? So what I always say is keep your expectations crazy low, like just
lower the bar.
Really low. Like you would think, oh, of course I'm going to achieve that.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm basically stating in a different way what you already said. Start out small.
Yeah.
Right. So small, you know, like a little, like, oh, I could, you know, maybe whatever it is, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks from now, I'll be able to, you know, do more squats or lift slightly heavier weights, or be able to go from like a walking to jogging to, you know, sprinting for 20 steps or whatever the heck it is. And you know, expectations are the boogeyman. They just really are. Goal setting isn't. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you know, you could, I like the idea of reverse engineering things. Like, you know, let's say, for example, your goal is to, and I've used this, I wrote about this in my book, The Big Picture, but, you know, your goal is to be on the top of Kilimanjaro one day, right? The tallest peak in Africa and Tanzania. And, you know, it's not like you just book a flight and throw some stuff in a bag and hope it all turns out. You know what I mean? Like, who do you talk to? What's the, you know, Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever it is.
Done it before.
Right. Who's been there, done that? What happened? What were the trials and tribulations? How the people succeeded? And what's a realistic time frame for you based on who you are at this stage of your life, based on your lack of athleticism or endurance or strength or power, or how much you do have. So, like I always say, when anybody's kind of trying to achieve anything, no size fits all. Everybody has X amount of rungs in the ladder. You know, my buddy Andy Lawrence, I talked about this earlier, you know, he has achieved so much in such a short period of time purely because he's a mesomorph. He's just a human muscle maker, you know. And my friend Vache, who is a kind of an ectomorph guy who hasn't really exercised very consistently over his life, he's come so far, but he just had dozens and dozens and dozens of extra rungs in his ladder, you know what I mean? And so what happens is, if you don't, sometimes you don't know if you're Andy or Vache.
Right.
You can't predict which one of those things are. Vache, like, kept showing up and kept banging it out and was, you know, frustrated at times, but he always showed up, and a year and a half later, he's a completely different human being. Andy managed to do basically the same thing in 3 months. You know what I mean? But they're both there, but they're, you know, look, and we're back to the genetics again, right? You know, your parents made you, and maybe there was a lot of stuff going on in your culture and your upbringing and your childhood, and you know, the lack of physical activity and healthy food in the house growing up. And so, you know, you have a longer learning curve. You have more rungs in the ladder than somebody who was, you know, who had super athletic parents, and you were a collegiate gymnast. You know what I mean? And all these things, if your expectations are unrealistic, and then of course you're going to fail. But if you understand that this stuff that I'm saying is generally true, you show up anyway, regardless of what's happening. Some days you're killing it. Some days you can actually feel like you're seeing the results. Other days you feel like you're 2 steps behind. You know, it's always 1 step forward, 2 steps behind. But as long as you're constantly moving and making those dietary changes, you know, you can speak to the diet end of this sort of thing. And I think you kind of already have, but that's what it takes. And look, you know, if everybody knew the Melissa Costello story, the ups and the downs and trials and tribulations, and who you were, and totally vegan, and then you were anemic and blah, 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 and you were like, you know, had no energy, you felt like you were zapped. I think Epstein-Barr was part of your history. And then, you know, like, okay, if you cling on to your dogma too long, and you're super pious about what it is that you're doing, you're going to run into the wall eventually. So you have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to change. You have to, you know, like, oh, I haven't had fish in 20 years, but I look, my skin is green and I feel like crap. Maybe I should eat some fish.
My fingernails are falling off.
Yeah. I like, you know, hey, doc, it hurts when I do this. You go, well, don't do that. You know what I mean? Hey, doc, it hurts when I feel miserable when I don't move. You know what I mean? So, Anyway.
That's also one thing I love about your approach and your workouts and things. Number one, do your best, forget the rest. And then number two, you know, a lot of the workouts, it's like 30 seconds, you can do anything for 30 seconds, right? And you hear that timer and you're like, oh yeah, cool, I got this. And that's what I really love about your approach to fitness is like, you make it doable for people. And, you know, it doesn't have to be this huge overwhelming thing. It's like, I don't have to follow the calendar exactly. It's like, just show up each day, do what you can, do your best, forget the rest. And congratulate yourself for showing up, right?
Yeah.
That's
showing up. 80% of life is showing up. The other 20% is paying attention to what's actually happening while you're there, which is keeping your ego at bay. Because you understand that, you know, you run too fast, you lift too heavy, you go too long, you know, you could be out of commission for 6 to 8 weeks or longer. So that's just, you know, be okay with being kind of lame and be okay with cutting it short. I mean, that's why in all the new Power Nation workouts, there's powering up, there's powering down, and the stop options. People love the stop options, and typically what will happen is they'll stop when they have to because of whatever reason, or they'll go to the second stop option, maybe stop there, or maybe they'll go all the way through because they're feeling pretty good about what they're doing. So, you know, no one ever did that before. I don't know why. It just felt like, you know, the right thing to do.
Right.
All right, here we go. Next question. How can people ensure that they feel good going into the new year and setting themselves up for success?
I mean, I think we kind of covered it, right? Like, not too high expectations. Just, you know, I always look at January as a warm-up month. You know, January is like the month you just kind of warm up into the new year. It's like, because the truth is, after the new year, people are still on vacation. People are still some kids are still out of school. Like, people are still traveling. So it's like, let's not make January this like be all end all month. Let's make it like a warm up month where we're like figuring out, what do I want to do for this year? Like, how do I want this year to feel? Who do I want to be this year? What do I want to, so I that's how I really look at the year, is like January is kind of the month I spend kind of more introspective, you know, kind of like asking myself, like, what would I like to intend this year? What do I want to happen in my business? What do I want to happen personally? You know, those kinds of things. And then just kind of moving from there and making small plans with small steps.
I have a three-part answer here. My first one is, well, here it is. What is today? The 20th. Start now, you know. I mean, start like, I mean, you know, if you're going to drink alcohol, then drink a big old 8 to 12 ounce glass of water between each meal. If you're going to go to a party where there's a lot of food and snacks and things, don't go hungry. You know what I mean? Like, those are how you set yourself up for some success coming 2024. And the next thing is, if somebody invites you to something that seems, you know, stress-free and kind of fun, where there's going to be joy, happiness, and laughter, I would go to that. You know, I mean, there's going to be some family stuff. It's like, oh God, Uncle Frank, what a doorknob, but you know, whatever. So you're going to have those kinds of people in your life. People, you're going to have to go to certain things. You don't want to be around them. But then again, if there are other opportunities where you get to go hang out with cool folks and do fun stuff, you know, whatever it is. I'm not saying you have to go to 10 different events between now and the first of the year, but maybe there's one or two that just feels like, oh, this is going to make me happy. This is going to be fun. You know, if some friends call you up and let's go to see this movie, whatever it is, then go see the movie, man. I mean, you know, this is that time of year where you know, there's a lot of entertainment out there, a lot of new things that you can go out and see and do. And then last but not least is, see if you can spend as little time with the finger pointers and the wannabes and the naysayers and the angry people who want to talk politics and comment on your lifestyle, even though they have no idea really what you're going through, what you're trying to achieve. Like, don't even go near those people. And if they happen to be around, see if every time they're nasty or mean or say something just divisive, or just see if you can say the opposite. It's like, whoa, that's interesting. I love cake. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, screw with them. Screw with those people. Do what you can do to get them to smile. And then, again, keep as little contact with those folks as possible. And then just, you know, sometimes it's up to you. Like, you know the friends that are kind of a drag, or family's kind of a drag, and you know the other ones that are pretty cool and fun. And if the cool and fun people don't reach out to you, then it's up to you to reach out to them, so that you can go spend time with them. And so that's like, okay, well, I've made some decent, not monumental dietary and alcoholic, positive things. I showed up at these things not hungry, so I had healthy food before I went. And so that way you haven't gained 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds before the first of the year. And you've also, you finished the year strong with cool events and fun, happy people. I mean, that ain't hard. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, the holidays are about connection, right? So how much connection can you create with people, and like with people who you feel are like-minded, that you feel good around, that that's what's really important. Get around those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, last question. And it says New Year here, but it doesn't have to be. What are you, Melissa Costello? What are your New Year's rituals? Or what are you doing now? What do you plan on doing at the beginning of the year? Not resolutions so much, but just sort of like, is there anything in the coming weeks prior, or it is pouring here right now. I'm not even going to hear that.
Yeah, I think it was pouring here like 30 minutes ago.
No, yeah, it probably ran down the coast and it's over us now. I can feel your raindrops on our roof. So is there anything sort of like you're sort of interested in doing or participating in, or maybe it's just the opposite, just rest and recovery kind of stuff? Where are you at now?
So I do a lot of resting through the holiday season, but then I also like to kind of vision the year for myself, within my business, within my personal. So one thing that I really want to focus on for 2024 is building my strength, because I'm really good at doing the cardio and the yoga and all that stuff, but the strength training has always been hard for me. And so I've been doing your workouts at home with my little like dumbbells, and I'm doing it, but I want to, for me, it's about building more consistency with strength training.
Oh, good.
It's
that.
Often, what's that?
I said I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
So for me, that's something I'm going to spend time focusing on. And it doesn't have to be this, I got to strength train 5 days a week and, all this stuff. It's more about me just like focusing on, okay, what do I need? So my dog's going to bark.
Like, fine. You got somebody not trying to get in.
Right? If I do upper body one day, lower body the next day, I just do 30 minutes or whatever, but just starting small. And so not doing it so hard that I hurt myself, and then I don't want to.
Right.
Right. So.
Right.
Yeah, but I like to spend time. I get my journal out. I kind of write, business. What would I like to create? I really want to do a retreat in 2024 with horses. So that's something I'm focusing on.
Well, Shauna will be there for that, and I'd like to come too. I mean,
it'll be in Santa Barbara. I've already reached out to the retreat center, so I've already taken steps. So I'm already working toward that intention, right? So I
know a guy that can help promote that a little bit. I got some people.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think for me, some of I've made some shifts lately already, and my hope, not a resolution, my intentions are to try to sustain and maintain some of these shifts that I've made in the last couple of weeks. A lot of it is business stuff. I mean, just being on Instagram more, more videos, more content, just creating more content for people. I today, for example, Dora, who you know very well, she's my assistant. She got about 200 different videos and photos that I've been collecting for the last couple of years, and I finally figured out how to get them to it. The files are kind of big, and they'll live on Instagram, they'll live on YouTube, they'll live wherever they live. They'll live on LinkedIn. I don't know, probably not. And that's something. Just because relying on income solely from my supplement company or from Tonal, whatever, the kind of business that you and I are in. I don't work for a beach body anymore. I'm not part of that company anymore.
Right.
I don't just work twice a year and sit around and wait for checks to come in the mail.
Those were
the days, my friend.
Those were,
and they've come to an end. So, whatever, you just have to keep generating that kind of stuff. And before I used to poo-poo it, like internet and YouTube and Instagram, old man curmudgeon guy. And I just went, no, this is the future. You better adapt or die. And I'm actually enjoying it. Like this conversation with you right now, kind of, sharing this stuff with people. This is awesome. I mean, I'm sitting in my office. I'm in my underwear.
Yeah,
me
too.
I have sweatpants.
No one will ever know. I really, when you said adapt or die, like that's the other thing. I think being really flexible with things. You know, when we set these goals, sometimes we get so rigid, and I think flexibility is really, really important in our minds around, you know, we always think it needs to look a certain way, and it's like, well, maybe there's a better way, maybe there's another way, you know, that could be better for you than the way you've done it in the past and haven't succeeded at. So opening your mind to be more flexible around those things.
And the only thing I would attach to that, and maybe I'm kind of basically repeating what you just said, is I think more than ever, more than I ever dealt with well, I guess this has been going on forever, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even now. Everybody's, too many people, youngsters especially, you know, we're all in junior high school and high school, we're all trying to fit in. You know, we don't want to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And that kind of mindset and belief system, for a lot of us, doesn't change as we get older. Now, if you met anybody I knew in high school and college, they would say that presently I am not anything like that guy was. You know what I mean? I have fought tooth and nail to be my own person.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And what happens a lot of times is you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole just so that you can fit in. And the fact of the matter is, purely based on who you are, you don't fit in. And be proud of the person that you are. And if you are an anomaly, then the odd thing is that the crazy thing is that people will be drawn to you because you're not trying to fit in. You're just being yourself. Like, you know, if you're stifling your personality or your humor or the way you communicate, because that's kind of what everybody else is doing. Like, what if you just did the opposite of that, or just not necessarily the opposite to do the opposite, but just rediscovering yourself and really listening to who you actually are, and then let that person run wild in the world as opposed to your canned version of you. You know, and I that was me. I played it safe. I was always so concerned about what everybody thought of me. And I mean, I still care a little bit. I mean, I'm not, I'm not like running.
I mean, I think
in the woods.
That's part of that.
You gotta find that place where you get to be you based on, your life experiences and your childhood and your upbringing and your friends and family and all that kind of thing. And it just takes the pressure off. Initially, it'll feel weird because, maybe you've been kind of faking it for a while, being something else or acting a certain way that isn't really truly you. But I mean, if, that would be a ritual, to answer this last question, that you might want to explore.
Yeah.
What is it about what you could try to do now that would bring more joy, happiness, and laughter to your life? Yeah.
Totally. Love that.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Yay. We conquered the world today.
Now, third time's a charm. I guess our 3-part series is officially over, everybody. I've really enjoyed it. The reason why, and this was Melissa's idea, all the way. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, a lot of times, you and I will do something like this at the end of November, and by now it's just in one ear and out the other. So this content lives where you can all find it and see it and use it. And the one thing I would say is anytime I'm part of a mastermind or a podcast, or I read a book or whatever it is, pick one of the things that we have covered and see if that resonates with you and start to practice it. It's not like do exactly everything that Melissa and I said today, and the last 2 sessions, you just feel overwhelmed, and then you end up doing nothing. Like, watch this thing over again and just listen. Like, you know what? No, that one, and then just eeny, meeny, miny, mo. That's the one I'm gonna go with. Okay, take whatever tip, and that's what I did. All these books back here, it wasn't like I did exactly what everybody said. I would just pick one thing, one word, one phrase, one paragraph, one sentence. Like my conversation with Michelle a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there was one thing that she said. It was like, bam.
Yep.
That and
it's
and then the cookies and the crackers and the chips and the pretzels all went away, and now it's mixed nuts and berries. I mean, and I feel. I mean, I always feel pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm not tired of. I mean, and I'm lean as. I mean, I posted a picture. It's like a Skeletor had a baby. I'm a little too light. I don't like being that light.
A freak of nature.
I do the right thing. You know what I mean?
I know you do. You work hard.
Yeah. I just don't want to get old like everybody else. Screw that. I just
do
not want to do it. You know what I mean? So tonight used to be plyo, but not tonight. It's primal plyo.
Oh,
adding animal flow to plyo here at the house.
Well, I'm going to do my little strength 1 and butt and gut workout from PowerSync 60 tonight. So I'll be doing that while you guys are plowing away.
Good deal. Nice.
Awesome.
Well, Melissa, thank you again so
Thank
much.
you,
And everybody, thanks for checking in with us and being part of this little 3-part series. And thank you again, Melissa, for thinking this idea. I love it. And a lot of your questions, a lot of these questions that we covered came from a lot of you. And they were good ones. And I hope we covered them okay for everybody.
Yeah.
We realized that women were underserved when it came to fitness. This is special, this is new, this is extraordinary, and you're going to get so much out of it. Here we go!
I didn't see myself going back into HIIT style workouts, thinking this is life for me now as a mom.
Yeah, so this workout is perfect for the ovulation window. This is what you do the week before a woman's period. So it works.
So new for women.
Right.
We're going to love this.
And same routine, you're just going to map it 3 different ways.
I wish I was a gal.
No,
This is
no,
how
you
I
might have
kind of
told me
train
that.
anyway. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You listen to Dr. Mindy Pell's. Now, let's say, for example, you're a dude. I don't want you left out. This is an amazing workout. Brian is working hard. In rehearsal, he burns 600 calories. In rehearsal, all right?
If you really want to improve your life, you can't do that without taking chances. And this is one of those risks that will guarantee you a reward.
And I would say this to all the women. As you're doing what we've set out, you and I collaborated on what we thought was best, but women, you're gonna understand what's best for you as you apply these techniques.
Yeah.
It's cool for women. It's a new thing, and I think it's gonna help a lot. The hormone regulation actually has been mind-blowing because my cycle's a little bit different. It's longer in the first, all this complication, and I'm completely on track. It's wild. I don't know what happened. I don't know, but everything is on track, on schedule. It's predictable. It's amazing.